On tonight's episode, we have a music video from Planet Fatale, plus we have a live performance and an interview from Burdensome.
Hi, I'm Andy.
I'm Dave.
I'm Kirk.
Okay, so we're here. It's album review time. It's episode number 4.
I think it's 4.
It'll be on the screen somewhere. It's episode 4, and we are looking at album reviews for this week. Kirk, what are we reviewing this week?
Yeah, so again, we always try to do different genres within the rock and metal spectrum. Admittedly, with me and Andy in charge, we do go towards a more extreme element. So we've got the English Black and Death Doom band Strigoi featuring Gregor McIntosh and Paradise Lost. We've got the English black metal band Thunder in Hooves. And we've thought we'd throw something different in. We've gone for the Long Island, New York hardcore rap metal band Straight from the Path.
Okay.
Do you want to start?
Which one are we picking for, Kirk, then?
Let's start with Andy, Stray from the Path. Let's put him in a
Oh, and put him in his most comfortable position here.
You say that. In the last year or so, I've actually really got into hardcore. You know, sort of modern stuff, not the sort of sick of it all DRI stuff from back in the day, but Guilt Trip. What an album! What a band they are, for example. Lionheart from the US, really like them as well. But this is Straight from the Path. So they're from the US as well, haven't?
Yeah, Long Island, I believe, New York.
Okay. Right. Yeah, I mean, it's all you could ask for a hardcore album. Gang choruses, the breakdowns, the pinch harmonics, the typical anti-police song. But yeah, again, really enjoyed this. Musically excellent. Vocals not quite to my taste. I prefer a little harsher, a little deeper. He's a little bit high-pitched, almost. I'm not going to say girly, but you know, just,
Eminent.
it just needs a little bit more aggression, a bit more power in there. But yeah, really good album. Again, one I'm going to listen to again. Maybe, you know, listen to their previous releases as well. Yeah, enjoyed that.
What did you think, David?
So I listened to it once. I don't think I even got to the end of the album. I have to be honest. I may have got most of the way to the album. I'm not quite sure. But one thought got stuck into my head while I was listening to it. This was the problem. I was just going, are they just trying to be Rage Against the Machine?
Exactly.
That's all that I could think of. As I kept hearing points going, this just sounds like Rage Against the Machine. Like, they've realised that Rage Against the Machine aren't doing it anymore, and they've decided that there's a gap in the market for a band that sounds just like Rage Against the Machine, and we're going to be it. And as soon as that got in my head, I was like, I can't give them the benefit of the doubt for originality, because you just sound like you're trying to be Rage Against the Machine, and that's going to bug me now. Because it was just, there were so many too obvious points of it. There were other bits before that really kicked in, and I think it was either like the second or third song where I heard some really blatant Rage Against the Machine sort of styles in there, and I was like, okay, you just feel like you're ripping people off a little bit. They did it really well. The album is really well produced. They had some good aggression, as you said, great breakdowns in it. But I just can't get through my head that it just sounds like Rage Against the Machine. Yeah. And that put me off the album. But I feel that maybe I was too harsh on it. Because of that, I think after this had come after I'd listened to maybe 3 death metal albums in a row, and then I was doing this, and I think at that point my mood was probably kind of like, I've had enough of this.
Yeah.
After 3 death metal albums, I was like, okay, I can't do it anymore. But I feel I need to give it another listen to give them a fair crack of the whip, because my initial thoughts and feelings were very tight, very professional sounding album, but sounds like it's just Rage Against the Machine for 2020. That's still the 2020s. That's what it kind of felt like to me.
Yeah, when I reviewed this, I even said in the second paragraph, okay, we're going to have to dispense with the comparisons to Rage Against the Machine, so let's get them out of the way. Certainly better guitar riffs than Rage Against the Machine, and they're playing them with the ferocity of Knocked Loose and Code Orange. Track number 3, Guillotine. Wow, how heavy is that chorus where the onomatopoeia of the chugging riff follows the vocals? That really reminded me of almost like Meshuggah, Gojira type riffing. one thing with this band, clearly they're a political band, aren't they? And I know that they don't say they're left wing, but clearly they're very anti-authoritarian. Andy, you're right. They have a song, a "fuck the police" type song, which I looked at the lyrics and they were quite intriguing. Actually, they weren't just your typical "we hate authority." I know that they did cause some controversy a few years ago with that song "Goodbye Alt-Right," which probably does make some people cringe, so that they clearly don't hide their political sentiments. And why should you? Music is a form of art, and if you want to use that as a platform to be political, I don't think you should be criticised for that. The drummer, by the way, is English, Craig Reynolds. So he's been in, I think, for the last 3 albums. There's a track on there, track number 5, that first 42 seconds just sound like a drum clinic. I was really impressed. I was like, wow, what is this? Just absolutely going for it with the fills. But yeah, it's very, very listenable album. A lot heavier than Rage Against the Machine. You can tell the background is hardcore. Just to let you know, they started out more in like a mathcore botch type hardcore, really a bit more chaos. And then it was 2011 where they started incorporating the Rage Against the Machine sound. Would any of you call this rap metal or nu metal?
No.
Too heavy, isn't it?
There was elements. There was passages. I think they might have had a few vocalists in there, but there's definitely some rap metal segments in the middle sections of some songs, which I'm glad wasn't that prevalent throughout. It's not my favourite.
No.
Favourite form, but yeah.
I liked the. Actually, one thing I'll disagree with you on, Andy. I do like that vocal style where it's almost like a tenor range voice screaming, isn't it? It's like a belting technique, as they call it. The band Knocked Loose is similar, and you'll find a lot of hardcore bands have that range as well. So I'm used to that, and I quite liked it. I think it was really rapacious, the voice, and very clear. You could hear every lyric in there. So I wouldn't personally. I like that style. So that didn't offend me, didn't let it down, in my opinion.
So what are we thinking? Thumbs up or thumbs down for them?
Yeah, it's got to be thumbs up on this.
Definitely, yeah. Really good album.
I think I came down on them hard because of the comparison, but I do know it's a good album, and I do know that they did some good production across the board. It's just you've got to get over that hump of the comparison piece and then start to accept them for what they are. We haven't got a Rage Against the Machine to use anymore, so we might as well.
They are filling the void, aren't they?
They're filling the void for those Rage Against the Machine, so fair enough. What's the next album we've got then?
Should we do Strigoi, which definitely one of my favourites. Let's start with you on this one, Dave, because this is certainly the type of music you'd expect me and Andy to be listening to all day on repeat. What did you think of this album, Viscera?
Okay, it was the first one I listened to way back when. It's about a week. Yeah, it must have been about a week ago I listened to this. I'm going to give you very much the clip notes on what I remember of it. It was a black metal album, and they did it very, very well. I don't remember much of a standout track or anything on there, but I find it really difficult with the black metal and the death metal albums to find something for me to lock onto that makes me that's memorable. And I'm now sitting here listening to it, whereas when I talked about the other bands that we've talked about on albums, I can kind of give you some ideas of certain things that stood out for me. There wasn't anything negative or positive that stood out for me. It just felt like a playlist that played in the background. But I do, from what I remember of it, I felt they were very, very tight, very complex, very sharp on their playing. But I'm going to have to pass over to you guys for a bit more detail on it, because it didn't resonate with me as far as a re-listen, unfortunately. But either one of you can take that one.
We will be interviewing one of the guitarists from this band.
I apologise in advance for that.
Hey, he will just want to hear an honest appraisal. Yeah, what did you think, Andy? Because when I picked this, I just thought this album is for you.
Yeah, really, really good. I'd say it's more sort of death than black metal. But our opening track, United in Viscera, absolutely brilliant. It's got that slow intro, sort of almost doom. really, really good. Ocean of Blood, not a big fan of Behemoth, but it reminded me of Behemoth. Napalm Frost, intentionally or unintentionally. Blast Beats, Napalm Death was what I've got noted down that one. Got some female vocals on one of the tracks. Standout for me was Byzantine Tragedy. Memorable chorus, and how good are Gregor McIntosh's vocals?
Definitely agree with you on that.
Absolutely brilliant. You know, I think I'm right in saying that this is not their first release, is it? So yeah, be checking that one out as well. But yeah, really, really good album. Highly recommended if you like your death, you like your Paradise Lost, you like the black metal. It combines all of those. Great imagery on the front cover, and just another really good album. Please to review it, so I might not come across it otherwise.
Yeah, I agree with you. To me, so first of all, so Gregor McIntosh, obviously a legend, and you could argue he invented that death doom genre with that 1990 debut Paradise Lost album, and certainly gothic metal with the 1991 album Gothic. Yeah, there are black metal elements in it, Dave. So we all have a different categorization of this. To me, I would call it blackened death doom, because there's very few blast beats in it. Definite Celtic Frost influence, and you mentioned the song Napalm Frost. The first thing you're asking, does it sound like Napalm Death and Celtic Frost? And ironically, it doesn't. It reminded me of Morbid Angel from the Altars of Madness era. It's really chaotic intro, and then it settles down. Definitely a few avant-garde elements in there. You can hear a bass trombone in a couple of the songs as well. I definitely agree Byzantine Tragedy is the best song on that album. For our listeners, I assume that song is about the fall of Constantinople, or the end of the Eastern Roman Empire in 1453 when it fell to the Muslim Turks. And it really does capture that the tragedy of that. And I don't think they have an opinion on it. They're just talking about a monumental historical event. But yeah, Greg's vocals, it's almost like he's injected steroids into his Adam's apple. How muscular are those vocals, and you can very clear though as well. The perspicacity of his voice on this album really comes through, and I'm surprised he never does anything with Paradise Lost, because I just did not know he had this talent.
Yeah.
And do you know, Dave, you said it was very sharp and tight playing. Yes, but I think that they've deliberately tried to make it as primitive as possible. There's not much extravagant guitar playing on this album. Right. If anything, it's drowned in fifth chords and a really sludgy guitar tone. And I know someone like Ben Ash, he would have had to really adjust his way of approaching music to play something as grimy, as grotty as this. And they really pulled it off. And if you like your extreme metal from that classic 87 to 91 period, this is an album for you. I don't think it's necessarily nostalgic. And as I said, Greg invented one of those subgenres in that golden era anyway. So I don't think we can criticize him for playing the death doom genre that he more or less pioneered.
Cool. So what is it? What are we voting then? Thumbs up or thumbs down? We know what this is going to be. So
we're
two thumbs up and one thumbs down, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I think.
thumbs up.
Yeah.
And the annoying thing is I'm thumbs down on it because it's not something I'm never going to listen to again. Not because it's a bad album, but it's just personal.
Yeah, I think if we should use that as criteria. If you know you're not going to listen to it again, even if it's an album that you want to be seen to be liking, just give it the thumbs down. People will appreciate that, won't they? Yeah. There's nothing personal against the artist. If he didn't capture you, it's a thumbs down.
The thing is, if you put it with, if you got 3 people that were listening to that purely only listen to J-pop and got them to listen to it, you're probably going to get 3 thumbs down from them. But then if you get black metal guys and you paid them J-pop, they're probably going to give that thumbs down. So it's finding the right sort of albums for the right people. But it's interesting when you get albums that cross over genres, where people that are not into that genre will still listen to it, and that does happen. What's our third album then?
Well, before we go to the third album, I think probably what we need to do moving forward is get some hard rock in here as well, because obviously we cover hard rock and metal. I'm conscious that we're going more towards the heavier stuff. So, Dave, maybe you want to, in future episodes, let's have some rock music in here as well. So this one, again, I'm thinking of it from your perspective, Dave. I probably won't have interested you because of you've probably flatlined listening to extreme metal. So this is Thundering Hooves, a London duo, London-Bristol duo. Their 2021 album Vestiges was our second best black metal album of 2021 for Scream Blast Repeat in our poll. So this is their sophomore effort. So let's start with you again, Dave, because you're probably more likely to be skeptical.
Okay, so Thundering Hooves, Radiance. Like the album. Surprisingly, I actually did like it. I wasn't a big fan of the first couple of tracks. I have to be honest, it was barely just... It was just kind of the standard expectation of black metal. More, it felt more death metal than what I'd say black. Then they threw me a curveball. It was either the third or fourth track, and they were doing this solo. And I'm like, hang on, this solo is a blues solo. Where's a blues solo come from in a black death metal album? Where does that come from? And then the next song came in and it had a cool groove to it. And I'm like, hang on, you're doing something a bit different here. You're not just giving me blast beats and growling down the microphone. You're actually showing me melody. And you're showing me some elements of groove in here. And I went, as soon as that happened, I started listening a bit more to the album. And we were actually, me and the wife were driving in the car, and she was like, the first couple of songs, she was like, how does anyone listen to this all the time? They're just growling at you, they're just barking, and you can't understand a word of what's going on, and we don't know what's happening. And then those ones came in, she went, oh, that ain't bad. And anything that makes the wife start to look around the music and go, that's not bad, you kind of go, hang on, they've got something here that's inviting me to come across. It made me then want to listen to the album again and go back to those tracks to find out where did that transition come from playing what I would class as kind of fairly standardized black or death metal in my opinion, and then start throwing blues riffs in there, and you're like, okay, you got a bluesy solo or a nice chord progression. That's kind of cool to throw that in there. So actually, yeah, I like the album.
Yeah, Andy, how would you say this is a black metal album?
Yes, in one sentence, I think. Yeah, I note down there's elements of traditional metal and doom metal. I must admit, I didn't pick up on the blues solo, but I've also noted down in Radiance. I think that song, the title track, wouldn't be out of place on Carter's Swan Song album. That's what that reminded me of. The riff and the vocals could have been Jeff Walker singing a song that didn't quite make the Swan Song album. But I really liked it. The band name, I wasn't sure I wasn't expecting. It's not indicative of the music within, is it?
No. I thought it was going to be like Viking metal or something like that.
Well, it's more sort of hard rock, I think. You know, that's what comes up for me. But I knew from our discussions about the view that's coming up that it was going to be doom. That's I probably like it. I did like it. Howl from the Cloister, very typical black metal song. Almost one that would be up there with some of the best. Some very typical black metal riffing, sort of simplistic and everything. In the latter half, I think that you pointed out, David, where things sort of changed and they put a few different ideas in there, aren't quite as recallable and memorable for me. But the opening few songs, including the title track, were really, really good. Again, it's one that I'm going to go back to.
Yeah, I agree. It is a black metal album, and you've both picked up on things that I observed when I reviewed it. Definitely a traditional heavy metal, even new album, new wave of British heavy metal jive to it at times, especially like that song Dance Macabre. Really, really raw, but the guitar tone is excellent. That is quite chunky, actually, isn't it? I would say a lot of that is the blackened thrash metal sound that they're playing. So like early Sodom records, Creator, a clearly an influence, Celtic Frost. There's a song. It's the last song where the outro to that is really, really impressive as well. I think they throw in like 3 or 4 different tempo changes, almost if we're coming to an end, and because we want to show you our metal heritage and the bands we like, from Black Sabbath through to Venom, right up to Mayhem and even Behemoth, I agree, on track number 5. I was just thinking that they just threw everything together into a melting pot at the end, and it worked. That was a good climax. So I've actually spoken to the drummer in the past, Michael B, or Brodsky, as he's called, and these two guys very knowledgeable, love their music, certainly love anonymity and not really sharing anything about themselves because their art speaks for itself. But yeah, I definitely thought there was a speed metal element to it without the tongue-in-cheek cliches that are now surprisingly popular with some of the black and thrash bands. As a sophomore album, I think it's even better than Vestiges, and I really like Vestiges. So to me, certainly lived up to expectations, probably exceeded them, and it's only 36 minutes as well. I think that's perfect, the duration for an album that's as unforgiving as this, with a couple of curveballs thrown in, Dave, to quote you on that.
Excellent. So thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs up.
3 thumbs up, I think, was an easy one on that one.
I think that's probably the one we enjoyed the most then, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Straight from the Path got a full house. I would say that Thunder in Hooves is the album
winner for this week as far as consistency, I guess.
Yeah.
My personal favourite was Strigoi with Straight from the Path. Close behind. This one not far behind as well. Again, 3 good albums this week.
Yeah. We need to find some that are shit then, don't we? So
we need to find some real horrible ones.
We'll never be personal though. We're never going to be vituperative and just say, oh, this is crap without giving a reason. We probably wouldn't be as crude as that anyway, would we? But yeah.
Where is the? I think you might have shared it. But where's the sort of go-to site for upcoming releases? You talking about us all perhaps picking a couple.
Yeah, there's so Dave, which ones do you use? Because I know that, is it Loudwire?
Loudwire. I use theirs because it kind of gives me pretty much everything on there, like the In Flames albums on there, and always a good one to keep an eye on for. But yeah, that was my one. Just went to Loudwire and looked for their release schedule.
Yeah. The other thing is, Andy, you could visit a website called Scream Blast Repeat.
What's that, sorry?
Never heard of it.
A website called Scream Blast Repeat, which does daily reviews. Yeah, that's my website, isn't it?
Scream Blast Repeat.
No, Scream Blast Repeat. He's not got it. Sorry, that's hilarious. Even though he's actually done some photography work for us in the past for live gigs. Yeah, it's surprising that they've not. It's hard to find coordinated data on this for upcoming releases, and now more than ever, you have to rely on your Spotify algorithm, don't you? Which no one wants to be reliant on that, even though it's exceptionally effective.
Excellent. Well, that's album reviews for this week. So let's go and check out a music video from another one of our local bands.
Track for 86. Dangerous
Okay, so here we are. We are back. We're doing question time. I've got another question for us all. Of course, I've had a chance to see it. The other guys haven't. So we talked a little bit about the music scene. We talked a lot about festivals historically. So this one also is more about local bands, local bands and how they move forward. So here is my question. Should bands be using streaming services or avoid them in favor of direct downloads and CD sales? Discuss. So, musicians in the room. So we've got a couple of different points because Andy, obviously you've got Nomadic Ray. You guys use streaming services. I've got my old band Nothing Gained and the new band Telescribe, and obviously with Nothing Gained we've used CD sales, we've done streaming services. And of course, Kirk, you're as a reviewer, etc., you go through a lot of music, so you're in that position of having to access music on a regular basis. So there's a couple of different viewpoints here. I've talked about this a lot with people I know and bands and stuff like that, so I'd be intrigued before I kind of chip in on this, what your thoughts are. So I guess, Kirk, from your point, what do you see as the benefits? Should bands be using the streaming services, or would you say going down direct download route like Bandcamp or CD sales is the best way for them to do it?
Yeah, unfortunately, they don't have the luxury of choice. And this really weighs into my underlying anxiety about the changes in the music industry. So obviously, as a person growing up in the mid to late 90s, you had to buy a CD, didn't you? You had to rely on the review in Kerrang or Metal Hammer or Terrorizer, Enemy, whatever. And if you didn't like that CD, you were just stuck with this worthless piece of plastic unless you kept your receipt. So if we turn it on its head, the benefits to me as a music reviewer, it's great having access to every album at the click of a button on Deezer or Spotify. But I like to buy CDs because I like adding to my collection. I like that the revenue goes into the pocket of the musicians. Now, I started this opinion by saying they don't have the luxury of choice. You've got to go with the streaming platforms, in my opinion. You want as many listeners as possible to be listening to your music. Downloads, when you say downloads, you don't mean paying for downloads, do you? I mean,
yeah, so for instance, you can do digital downloads of an album. So you buy it and it's just you get the WAV or the MP3 files, and then you can put them on whatever device you want to listen to. So I don't use streaming very often because I work in a lot of areas that don't have, I work in like lots of villages and fields and areas like that where I do not have good internet connection. So I don't have that luxury in a lot of cases. So I will download a lot of albums. I'll have hard drives full of albums and I will just transfer whole chunks of maybe 100 albums onto my phone, and I'll just listen to that on Bluetooth as and when I feel like it. And then after a couple of months, I'll just swap a load of albums out and put some different stuff on there. And unless I've got like album reviews to do or something like that, then I might download them and put them on there. But I've only recently started using something like Spotify because of doing these album reviews. Because as you said, I don't want to buy an album unless I know what it's like. I'm not committed enough to it, and I think that's one thing that I think is the key word is commitment. Because when you bought an album, you were committed to that band, you were investing money in that band, you were going to listen to that album, even if you didn't like it on first listening, you were going to listen to it until you actually had a chance to take it in. Whereas I think with streaming, you just skip. You have no commitment to that band. You're not investing anything in that band. You're hoping that something's going to connect with you. And then you're going to slowly start to think about that investment element. Whereas I think when you buy a CD, you're actually feeling like you're investing, not just physically giving them money. It becomes almost like they're your band.
Yeah.
It's something, you're part of them. You're one of the people that own the CD. And I do still try to buy CDs from bands whenever I can, because I like to have a physical CD. I also like it when bands do something different with the CD. They put stuff in the inlays. I've had bands that add digital content. So I used to do it with, we'd have, like on one of the last EPs I ever did, we had a 5-track EP, but what we also did was we took loads of unreleased footage from the studio that we'd never put on YouTube or anything like that and put it as a digital package. So if you put it into your computer or whatever, you could get all this digital stuff. and that was the extra bonus if you bought the EP.
CD-ROM. Remember those?
Yeah, no, if you couldn't get it anywhere else. We had never, and we already had music videos online, but we were like, well, let's take all the stuff that was on the cutting room floor and all the jokes that we were making behind the scenes, and we'll put that purely on the album or on the EP, and that's the only way you get it. And that works quite well, actually. We sold a few from that point of view, but I haven't seen it from the other side, also seen it from a streaming point of view. So I'm going to use the band I've talked about a few times, Kane, as a reference point. Now, Kane have just mentioned that they've just done, in 10 years, across all major platforms, 360,000 listens across all of their albums. So 10 years they've been going, so 360,000 listens. Their revenue on that is £1,000.
That's scandalous, isn't it?
If you work that out, let's break that down. I worked it out roughly. Let's say that you're taking how many albums they've all those listeners had bought it on an album and listened to that album 10 times. So I took it down, I kind of broke it down so it wasn't just like one listener made one album, for instance. If they'd done it in album sales, that would have been £31,000 if that had been done in CD sales. And that's the scandal of 31,000 if they'd done it in CD sales, £1,000 for streaming. So that's not even going to cover their rehearsal times, nothing.
Yeah.
And that's for 1/3 of views or listens on a Spotify channel to get £1,000 there's no benefit to the band in that opinion. But I guess Andy, what do you think about the whole thing? Because you're obviously out there working on it now.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of echo what Kirk said. It has changed the way we listen to music. I mean, I used to, read the reviews. Used to get the current amount CDs on Metal Hammer and terrorise. That used to be my source. And if I liked the track on there, I'd go about and buy the album. And I totally agree with what you said, Dave. You buy a CD or an album, you're invested in that band. You're part of the group of fans who follow that band. Because if you then take away that album and enjoy it and repeat listening to it. But again, agree with you, Cody. It's a necessity, isn't it? It's a way of getting your band out to the whole world rather than just the local scene. If that's where you're playing your shows, or a little further afield if you happen to stick an ad in one of the magazines going back a few years. I mean, with the Radix Rain's first album, we were very proud of it and everything, and we were going to do some CDs. We decided not to because we had a sort of change in personnel lineup and a change of direction, and we kind of almost sort of shelved that material. But it's a difficult one. I mean, I personally do use Spotify, not just for when we do things like these album reviews. I do use it as my source of new music. I use it as my source of my favourite albums. Because I drive a van all day that hasn't got a CD player, so I have to use the phone. I've got an iPhone, so you can't, as far as I know, download music files or your digital purchase from Bandcamp. So I do use Spotify, which doesn't give the artist any revenue. And subsequently, I am not purchasing as many CDs as I used to. I listen to an album, the ones we've done the review for. There may be the odd one that we do the review for. I'll physically go out and purchase a CD either direct from them or if they're, in HMV or whatever. But my CD purchases have gone down drastically in the last few years. But my music listening has gone up.
That's just the reality of the market, isn't it? Another question here is, let's go back to Kane as an example. 360,000 streams over 10 years?
Yeah, streams.
Yeah, so if that was a 10-year period from 1992 to 2002, would they have sold 360,000 CDs? Clearly not. They probably might have sold 10,000. The revenue would still be higher, wouldn't it? So the trade-off is, let's take Nomadic Rain or Teller's Scribe, your new band. 20 years ago, you couldn't just put your music out and then for a monthly subscription, somebody can listen to that along with an unlimited number of songs whenever they want on a mobile device that they carry in their pocket. And like I use Deezer, so you said you do a lot of work outside where there's a poor Wi-Fi connection. I don't have that problem. I just download it onto my phone before I go out into the countryside and walk in those areas. So the ease of access is fantastic. As a reviewer, that's great that I can review 8 albums a week and I can do it at the click of a button and I'll go and buy the CD. But the original question was, should local bands avoid that? Is it an either or question anyway, but should they go more towards trying to sell physical CDs? No, go towards selling physical merchandise, your t-shirts and apparel and various things like that. But you just can't dictate to the market now. Would my 13-year-old niece buy a CD? No. Would I buy a 1/4? No. She'd look at it and think, what's this? But I'd still recommend music and say, listen to this album by this band. So you just don't have the luxury, Dave.
I would say, I was going to say that the challenge now is that the market of the CD and buying the CD, buying the t-shirt, that element of early 90s or even up to late 90s marketing strategy doesn't exist anymore. You can still do it at the gigs, you still get those sort of elements of the t-shirt buying there, but the problem is the price of t-shirts to get them made now is you can't just do limited batch runs. They are so expensive to do. I mean, the last time I did t-shirt printing, I had a local guy did it for me, and that was great because we got them done like for $5 a t-shirt, which was brilliant. But you end up either having to buy a lot of them, or going for a sort of standard basic printing and can't do the design that you really want to do because it's too costly to have multiple colors, and so that you can't really make a huge amount of profit on t-shirts. You can make a little bit, but not a huge amount. So I think the problem is finding music now is like a needle in the haystack. So you rightfully said that back in the day, 80s, 90s, you would be a band, you'd go out, you'd play your local gigs, and you'd be reliant on either management, marketing, PR companies to try to get you into the major press. If you could get yourself into a Kerrang or a Metal Hammer, that was a big thing because everyone read it, and so you could get yourself moving. But it was very difficult to kind of get to that stage. Then when the internet came around and we had everyone doing sort of album reviews, and then everyone started doing the streaming and the YouTubes, and now there's an absolute saturation of music that trying to find one that's going to fit you at any given time is very difficult because you just have so much stuff around you. Unless you know exactly what you're looking for, you're not just going to stumble over it. Occasionally you might get something that gets referred to you, and it's still, I find I get more people refer me music than like YouTube will or Spotify will. It will be someone actually say, go check this band out, and I'll find more out about it. So it's still that old word of mouth thing that you'd have from back in the 80s, where people would just talk about their favourite local bands, and that's how you'd find out about things. That's still the best way. But in the UK market, I think not as many people going to gigs. You're not getting that chance to see as many live bands anyway. So doing that regular, getting out on the road and playing 100 gigs a year, thinking that you're building your fan base up, is actually probably detrimental because you're not playing to a huge crowd all the time. You're not really building up a huge following, and you're spending a huge amount of money of your own pocket to try and do it.
You don't think there's a deflation, like the equivalent of an inflationary element to this? There's too many bands chasing too few gig slots. So, me as a consumer, we all live on the doorstep of London, really, don't we? We could get to London on the train within 30 minutes, right? Three out of those 7 days every week, there's probably some great bands playing, but there's just too much choice, and I can't go anywhere because I'll be reviewing music to keep up my schedule. But the other thing is there as well. Think about it, word of mouth. How many people now will rely on the algorithm of Spotify to recommend the next album? And it does a bloody good job, to be fair. So what I do is almost obsolete, reviewing music as an editor of a publication. But the few people who still want some guidance and want to read an opinion and want to gain some knowledge from what's going on in different scenes will do that. But I'm not bitter or annoyed that people don't read my reviews. No. Why should they? Why should they? Technology can recommend what they'll listen to, and I'm not even competing against that.
So, I guess we haven't really got any consensus of whether they should or shouldn't, but I think it's one of those ones that it does a job. It gets your music out there. It gives people a lot more opportunity to listen to it. But as an artist, you don't really earn any money off of it. So I guess the big challenge for bands is how do they earn money other ways so that they can do that and get the music out there. I guess that's the big thing for bands to start to work on and try and come up with. Any band that comes up with a solution to earn money whilst having all their money on, or having all their music on streaming services, is going to make it big. They're going to be the best management company out there if they can do that. But I have no answer to that one.
We're all waiting for that seismic shift, and I'm sure in 20 years' time, the pattern of the way we can see music and monetize it will be, I'd like to think, in favor of the artist again.
It'll be interesting. Anyway, right, that's it for today's question time, and let's go and check out another live performance from another local band.
Strigoi here from the oppressively heavy extreme metal band Burdensome. So, first question, you've only got one song in public domain, Damage Deliverance. What are your plans to get into the studio and release new material?
So the plan is definitely record next year. We're unsure yet if it's going to be an EP or like a record or what, but the plan is to get in and record some more stuff properly next year, because that was cut just using stuff from my place. So that was like just done to get something out, so at least we had, if people didn't know who we were, and why would they? They'd be able to look up at least a song. So like say if you like power metal, I mean you saw what we were on a bill, you'd be able to listen to us and be like, oh that's not my thing, and then at least you know, right? Yeah. So that was what it was, just to have something out there.
Yeah. So did you just do that one song in the studio, just go in one day and out, just like you said, for that reason?
No, so it was, so I record, like when I write, I record stuff and then I leave space for the other sort of guys in the band to fill in the blanks. So it'd be like, this is the song, it goes from like here to there, and like this bit needs a bass line, or this bit needs a lead melody, or there's a guitar solo that goes here, or we should do a harmony in this part, whatever it is. Kind of leave spaces for everyone to do their own thing, but the skeleton will kind of be in place. So the song was roughly recorded once, everyone heard it, that's how they knew what the song was when we then get in a room and start working on it together. And then once we had it dialed in as a band, I just re-recorded it, and like Owen and I assisted the vocals anyway, did it that way. So, and it was kind of rushed to get something out before that first show, and the plan is that future stuff will be recorded better. So we've had a recording done for Terminal Misery, which is going to be the next song we put out. We're just waiting to like mix and mastering and all that stuff, but I don't know when that's going to be yet. So I don't be like, oh, it'll be out in, because then you commit to something. So it'll be out when it's out. Yeah. But that's going to be the next one, and that's recorded more as a band. So that's what like everything's more legit on that one basically.
So do you know, let's come back to that term, I really like it, oppressively heavy.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Another one, when I reviewed the show that you played in Hartford, and I called it...
You're very kind, you also referred to us as 4 guys in our mid-20s.
Yeah, I didn't know that, I simply was.
It's fine, don't worry.
But I called it like the ugliest thrash metal you can imagine, really deliberately dirty, very extreme. When you see an image of you guys, you're like, clearly a metal band, but I don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And then when I heard that, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is like mid-80s extreme metal.
I don't know where we fit in.
Yeah, exactly.
Within a subgenre, and I don't want to. Like, A, I don't want to know, but also I don't want to fit in a subgenre. Yeah. We're a metal band, and so my kind of general philosophy on everything is 99% of everything is fucking terrible. Of everything, right? Like if you watch a football match, it's 90 minutes long, 85 of those minutes suck. And there's like 5 minutes in there that's great, and that's why you sat through the other 85, right? And it's the same with anything. Like most music is terrible, most metal music is terrible. So it's like finding those little things that mean something to you for whatever reason, whether it's attached to a memory of where you heard it, or it just hits you on an emotional level, whatever it is, right? It's different for everyone, but it's finding those little bits that mean something, and those become important to you. And so I feel like that's kind of what this band is. Like we're not death metal band, we're not a thrash metal band, we're not a kind of any one of these, we're not a progressive metal band, but there's elements of all that stuff in there, because I'm influenced by all that stuff, but I don't want to be married to like one genre.
No, of course not. Yeah, and I see where you're coming from. You don't really want to be consciously influenced by too many bands for it to be scientific. Like, okay, in the intro we want to sound like Voivod, in this section...
Yeah, I never want to hit a point where we have a section and someone's like, oh, it's not death metal enough. Yeah. Or it's not thrash metal enough, or it's not progressive enough. It's like, it can be too much of something. Yeah. I never want it to be like not enough of a thing, like we have to tick that box. Like I don't want that for this band. And none of us do, and we all have very different influences that go into it, and I think that's what helps us kind of work as a band.
Do you want to just tell us about the formation of the band? Because I know you've played, 5 shows so far?
Something like that, yeah. So basically, like, we played a show with this exact lineup for Owen, who's the other guitar player, lead guitar player, and other vocalist in this band. When he turned 30, we played a show for his 30th birthday, just doing cover songs for like a laugh with this lineup. And at that time, none of us really knew Alex, who is now our drummer. And so we did that show, and it was fun. We did Sharp Dressed Man by ZZ Top, Ace of Spades, Children of the Grave, Master of Puppets. Like just for a laugh on his 30th birthday. And he played like 3 sets that night, one with his band at the time, another set on covers and stuff. And then off the back of that, we sort of had a bit here and there, just kicked through some covers, like we were doing like some Mastodon stuff, and CKY, and like some death songs and shit like that, which is really cool. And then, but it kind of petered out because everyone had other stuff going on. And then going into the lockdown, I had a lot of time. and a lot of anxiety and worry like everyone else did. So I just like there's a backstory to this which I skipped over. I had a quite bad wrist break, so I had my wrist surgically rebuilt twice, my left wrist. So it's got bone grafts and like a pin in there and stuff. So I couldn't play guitar for like 3-4 years at all. Couldn't play it. And then hit a point coming out of that where I was like, just pick it up. Like I'm gonna suck, but if it doesn't hurt, I'm in. If it hurts, I'm fucking selling all the gear. I'm done and out. So it's kind of coming off the back of that. And doing that show for Owen's birthday gave me a kick up the arse to really get invested in playing again. And then going into the lockdown, I had nothing but time. So I just wrote, and then ended up with like somewhere between 10 and 15 songs probably. And then kind of shipped them around to some people, like sent them to Owen, sent them to Chris, who's our bass player, and then sent them to Alex. And was basically just like, this is stuff I've written, what do you think? And it got formed. So as soon as we were out of the lockdown thing, then we were able to start like actually working together and getting together and building up a band. So
yeah, when you see you guys on stage, you seem really grateful to be there. Like it's 4 mates.
We're old, man.
Yeah, you're fist bumping on stage. It's like these guys mean it. Really
this is like not that I think we're going to accomplish anything particularly noteworthy in the history of fucking the universe, right? But it's like it very much feels like this is it. This is the last chance to really try and do a thing, and like I'd rather fall on my sword than not try. So like I don't give a fuck if you like it or not. It's really not my problem. Like if you're in this room, you paid to be here, more for you. Yeah. So like we're all in on just doing what we do. So and then it ties back into the like whole oppressively heavy thing. It's like because we're not trying to taper this for the audience's pleasure.
That's it. You doing it because you want to be there and you enjoy what you do. You don't really care what people think. And I like some of the Facebook posts where you say, "We're in no mood to slow down," for the next gig.
100%. Yeah.
Are you ready for some horrible noise? I think was how you started to do it up, and it actually was like, wow.
I'm here to fucking bleed people. Like if you don't like it, it's a you problem. Like I don't care. And I've seen too many bands new to themselves for a wider appeal, and you don't get a wider appeal.
No.
People will just go, they're like a watered down version of that other thing. Yeah. Like no one goes like, it's like a more approachable version. They're like, it's a lesser version of something I know. So to me, it makes no sense to do that.
Just one more question before we wrap up the subject now. So what is the best gig that you've played out of the 5 or 6 shows?
For sure it was like the hometown one. Yeah. Like we sold out in 2 days. It was like loads of our friends. My dad came to that show, which was really cool. Because like my dad doesn't get any music at all. Like he doesn't get it. Like he bought me my first guitar, and he's always been a big thing of like whatever makes you happy, do that. Yeah. Right? Like fuck what everyone else thinks. And those exact words. So like that was cool, and it was just like it was so fun. Yeah. And it was a tiny little room, but like we could hear well enough compared to most places we played. It's like we could hear what we were doing. We were all stoked to be there, and it was just it was like super fun. So
Hemel Hempstead, Hertfordshire. That's the hometown, isn't it?
That's the one. Yeah.
So hopefully you'll be able to play in some other locations outside the southeast. Like the northwest of England.
Yeah, I mean, like we want to play everywhere. It's just it's time and it's money and it's just those things really. Like time's precious, and like I'm currently working 3 jobs. Owen and Chris are relatively new dads. Like Owen had a baby like 2 months ago. Right. Well, I say he did. His wife did. He didn't.
Yeah, he didn't.
But but he had a baby like a couple of months ago. Chris, who's our bass player, he had a baby like a year or so ago. Alex is suddenly having to be flown all over the place for work and things. It's like everyone's got a lot going on, and it's really like trying to keep this a priority, but also never make it feel like a burden.
No,
right?
exactly.
Like, yeah. You know?
Get it?
Yeah. So that's kind of the important thing. But yeah, we're going to play everywhere. We've got a couple of connections here and there, like some guys are not kind of Norwich way and stuff like that. So yeah, we want to get out everywhere, man.
Yeah.
But it's also like managing your expectations in terms of like you can't just go and play somewhere 150 miles away where you have your name is of no value. So building that up in the local area, I'm not getting stuck in it.
No.
Yeah, and it's a tough balance, and I don't think anyone ever gets it right. You just have to plow on, and that's the plan. It's like we're just going to beat everyone down, basically.
So I like that. That's a good way to end the interview.
Cool.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, nice meeting you like properly on the last time. I didn't get to talk to you. I think I just like said hi. That was kind of it. I think I was like running around trying to do 5 things. So yeah, nice
looking forward to the show tonight as well.
Yeah, me too, man. I think tonight's gonna be cool. I went to get some carcass on Sunday with like Jeremy and Mayor. Work on Monday was horrendous. horrendously, violently sick, like as I threw up. I scalded the whole of my throat, so my uvula is currently sitting on my tongue. So it feels like I have food stuck in my mouth all the time. I'm just about able to talk without gagging. So until yesterday, I could barely even talk. I haven't eaten since Sunday. But like I ran through some vocals and stuff yesterday, and it was like, this will be passable, like I'll be able to get it like going. So now that I know that, I'm excited. Up until then, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to like get on to do all the vocals, or like I don't know what I'm gonna do. So yeah, it's touch and go for a minute, but now that I should be okay, I'm really looking forward to it.
Super. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks a lot, man.
Cheers,
Take care. And you.